It was the 7th year of searching for the greatest treasure on the planet. But instead of the long-awaited riches, Mel Fisher's boat lost. In a single night, his son, his daughter-in-law, and a crew member of his ship North Wind. This heavy loss did not stop the treasure hunter, and he continued the search for another 9 years. Did his quest end successfully? And what exactly was Mel Fisher looking for? It all began back in the early 17th century. At that time, Spain was experiencing its golden age thanks to the immense reserves of gold and silver from South America. Every year, hundreds of tons of precious cargo crossed the Atlantic Ocean so that representatives of the Spanish crown could bathe in luxury and vanity. Of course, the oceans back then weren't the safest place. Pirates were a real pain. But assigning warships to every cargo vessel was pretty expensive. Or maybe they just didn't want to waste the money. So they upgraded the cargo ships into war-ready vessels and called them galleons. They could carry gold and, if necessary, give pirates a good thrashing. In 1620, one of the finest galleons was built, the 500-ton Nuestra Señora de Atocha. It was armed with 35 cannons, given towering sides, and manned with the top experts of the time. In 1622, in Havana, Cuba, the Atocha was loaded with a record amount of treasure. About 40 tons of silver ingots, 255,000 silver coins, 3 tons of gold, more than 2,000 emeralds, and over 1,000 pearls. And that's not even counting the smuggled goods, various precious items, and religious relics, all crafted from silver or gold as well. The Atocha was supposed to leave port earlier, but it was delayed since they had to wait for all those riches to arrive from different parts of South and Central America. The silver came from Bolivia, the gold from Venezuela, the emeralds from Colombia, and the pearls from Margarita Island. Because of these delays, 265 people aboard the Atocha set sail right in the middle of hurricane season. After all, the King of Spain was waiting for his gold to fund a war. But you can't bribe nature with gold or silver. Just 3 days after leaving port, towering waves smashed the galleon's hull against the coral reefs near the Marquesas Keys. The ship broke in two and quickly sank to the bottom. Only 5 people survived. The rest became food for the local fish. The Spanish crown was deeply distressed by this tragedy. Of course, not because of the people, but because of the unimaginable treasure that had been lost. Every possible effort was thrown into recovering the sunken fortune. Among the local indigenous population were many skilled divers who, without any special equipment, plunged deep into the waters to retrieve the lost cargo. But even they could not find the exact location of the Atocha. For 5 whole years, the Spanish crown tried to find the lost treasures. Then they had to come to terms with the loss. But the legends about the treasure continued to live on. For 363 years after the disaster, pirates and other adventurers tried to search for it, but all attempts were in vain. Interest in the treasure was fueled by constant stories of sailors who found single coins or fragments that were supposedly from the Atocha. In 1969, these stories reached Mel Fisher. Once in his childhood, this man loved to read Treasure Island and dreamed that he too would one day be able to find treasure. But instead of searching for treasures, he spent his early youth as an engineer in World War II. And after that, he opened the first scuba diving shop in California. Mel sold diving equipment, worked as a diving instructor, and even hosted a segment on a local TV show about his underwater adventures. The whole Fisher family shared his passion. Mel's wife, Dolores, even became the first woman to spend more than 50 hours underwater. Their 4 children, Dirk, Kane, Kim, and Taffy, also joined their parents in all their sea adventures. And when the father spoke about the mysterious treasures of the Atocha, every member of the family agreed without hesitation to join the search. Mel Fisher obtained a license for the search and carried it out from the state of Florida. Years passed, and the treasure still remained undiscovered. To keep the expedition alive, he gathered dozens of private investors, selling them shares in the future treasure. During this time, Fisher also revealed an impressive talent as an inventor. Thanks to his inventions and improvements, treasure hunting today has become a much easier task than it was half a century ago. One of these inventions was the so-called mailbox. It was a metal tube connected to the boat's engine, which generated a powerful stream of water. The jet would wash away silt and sand from the seabed without damaging the artifacts. Previously, divers had to dig with their hands or shovels, constantly losing or damaging objects. Mel adapted commercial devices for work in Florida's sandy and murky waters. He created precise maps of the locations where the remains of the Atocha and other ships lay, combining historical records with modern measurements. Fisher used buoys and special flags to know the coordinates precisely. The fishers and their assistants worked in pairs or trios, while on the surface they coordinated the boats using radio navigation systems. Fisher's boat was at the same time a base, a museum, and a working office. Coins were being restored right on board. The treasure hunters studied captain's logs, river charts, and records from Spanish archives. He combined old data about currents, storms, and the year the ship was built to predict where the wreckage might have sunk. He even developed his own underwater lights, signaling systems for divers, and special containers for storing finds underwater. Years went by, but apart from a few scattered coins, there were no results. After almost 7 years of failures, it was Dirk, Fisher's eldest son, who decided to change the course of the search. His determination set the team on an entirely new path, and soon they came across a cannon with a serial number that, without a doubt, belonged to the Atocha. This discovery proved that the search was heading in the right direction. On the night of July 20th, 1975, the 60-foot tugboat Nightwind sailed into a storm in search of treasure. Suddenly, a fuel valve failed. As a result, the movement of 3,000 gallons of diesel quickly capsized the vessel. Dirk, who was only 22, his wife Angel, and diver Rick Gage were killed. Their bodies were found only the next day. This tragedy struck Mel hard. He realized that his fanatical search had cost his son's life. The team fell apart for a short time, and some investors pulled out of the project. Mel and Dolores decided not to abandon the search. They repaired the boats and equipment, improved the mailbox and the metal detectors, and moved their base to a safer vessel to minimize risks. Mel and Dolores focused on preparatory expeditions, recovering small fragments, coins, and metal pieces. They also began systematically creating maps of the wrecks, using historical records, current maps, and storm data. The team started to realize that the main treasure might be hidden in the sands beneath the ship's remains, rather than lying on the surface. Exactly 10 years had passed since Dirk's death. On July 20th, 1985, Fisher went out to sea again, this time with his other son, Kane. The weather was calm, but the sea currents were shifting, and the team had to be extremely cautious. Kane dove underwater and found a golden object buried in the silt. The team began clearing the sand using the mailbox and hoses. And after some time, Kane exclaimed, unable to hold back his emotions, "I see it! We've found the mother lode!" That's what they call the main mother treasure. 17 years of searching had finally ended in success. More than 40 tons of precious cargo were lifted from the ocean floor. It turns out that Dirk, at the cost of his own life, had given his family the direction that ultimately led them to the treasure. When it comes to such a fortune, there are always plenty of people eager to claim a piece of it. So, of course, the case went to court, but the ruling awarded everything to Fisher and his investors. The entire treasure was divided among them, yet the collection turned out to be far more valuable than its estimated worth, because this wasn't just gold and silver. This was living history, spiced with legend, and that makes it worth many times more. What's more, the Atocha itself became a true brand. Some of the coins and emeralds were turned into precious jewelry, each accompanied by a certificate of authenticity. Atocha treasure! And even the coins themselves are more valuable than ordinary silver coins, because they bear the unique mark of the sunken galleon. Certain relics became museum exhibits, displayed in the Maritime Museum named after Mel Fisher. One could have put a period on the story there, but according to estimates, Fisher recovered only half of the entire precious cargo. The other half still lies hidden beneath layers of silt in the waters off the coast of Florida. Perhaps the one who finds it will be able to break Mel Fisher's record. After all, to this day, the Atocha treasure remains the largest treasure ever discovered in the history of mankind. But in the depths of the ocean, hides something that could easily surpass all the jewels, both found and unfound, from the Atocha. After the sinking of the Atocha in 1698, a far grander galleon was built, the Nuestra Senora de San Jose. The previous experience had taught the Spanish Empire nothing. Their greed compelled them to build a ship capable of carrying even greater riches. It was armed with as many as 62 cannons to defend against pirates and other enemies, but it wasn't pirates that doomed the ship. The final cargo of the San Jose, 2 years to gather. Silver came from Peru, emeralds from Colombia, and gold and pearls from Panama. In total, there were about 200 tons of precious metals and gemstones. In June 1708, the ship set out on its final voyage, but it was not sunk by a storm, nor was it plundered by pirates. At the beginning of the 18th century, Europe was at war, as always. The Spanish Empire was falling apart, and many were eager to seize what was left. The British ship HMS Expedition, commanded by Captain Charles Wager, tried to intercept the valuable cargo. But who fires at a treasure they're supposed to capture? The powder magazine aboard the San Jose exploded, and the galleon sank to the bottom near the coast of present-day Colombia. Along with the treasure, more than 600 people went to the bottom. Of course, if such a treasure had been found, it surely would have been recovered by now. And in fact, it was found, back in 2015. There are even photos of the cannons and gold coins. But it still lies on the ocean floor. Why is that? The wars of the 18th century ended, but countries continue to fight over it in court. Colombia claims the treasure is theirs, since it was found in Colombian territorial waters. Spain disagrees. The Spanish argue based on international law. The San Jose was a warship, which means it belongs to the country whose flag it sailed under. But something tells me Spain today and the Spanish Empire are not quite the same thing. Write your thoughts in the comments, because I'm not entirely sure. The legal dispute also involves the American company Sea Search Armada. They claim they found the treasure back in the 1980s, which means half of it should belong to them. But only the Colombians know the exact location, since their navy discovered the ship back in 2015. The Colombian authorities have not disclosed its position to prevent anyone from attempting to recover it. The truth is, raising it would be an extremely difficult task. The treasure lies at a depth of more than 600 meters. Ordinary means simply won't do here. But whoever manages to bring it up could gain between $4 and $17 billion worth of riches. However, as the Atocha has shown, the search for treasure can cost you the most precious thing of all, your loved one. So, is it really worth it? Share your thoughts in the comments. And don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the bell so you don't miss new videos that are just as fascinating.